In a study conducted by Ken Armstrong and Maurice Posley from the Chicago Tribune in the late 90s, they analyzed thousands of court records, higher court rulings, and lawyer disciplinary records of cases from 1973 to 1995, and what they found was shocking. Even the word shocking is being extremely generous here. It was the very first study conducted of its kind. The report reads as follows. With impunity, prosecutors across the country have violated their oaths and the law, committing the worst kinds of deception and the most serious of cases. They have prosecuted black men and have even gone as far as hiding evidence where the suspects were identified as white by witnesses. They have prosecuted a wife while they were hiding evidence that their husband had committed suicide. They have prosecuted parents for the death of their own daughter, while at the same time they were hiding the evidence that the little girl, the daughter, was killed by wild dogs. And for what reason would a prosecutor commit such vile deeds? They do it to win. They do it because they won't get punished. They have done it to defendants who later came within hours of being executed, only to be exonerated at the very last minute. And those are just the ones that were discovered. In 1963, the U.S. Supreme Court made a ruling that was designed to curb such misconduct by prosecutors. The Supreme Court declared such misconduct by prosecutors to be so reprehensible that it warrants criminal charges and disbarment. By the mid-1990s, at least 381 murder convictions were thrown out because prosecutors were caught hiding evidence that might prove innocence, or they presented evidence that they knew to be false. Of all the ways that prosecutors cheat, those two are considered the worst by the courts, and that number represents only a fraction of how often such cheating occurs." End quote. Since that law was passed in the 60s, not a single one of those prosecutors was charged or convicted of a crime. Not one was barred from practicing law. Instead, many saw their career advance. A lot of them got promoted. They became judges. They became district attorneys. One of them even became a congressman. So what does that tell you? What does this say about a system where the most dishonest, the most despicable, the most corrupt people are the ones who end up in power? Can you imagine anything worse than being prosecuted by someone who hides evidence of your innocence? Someone who stands in front of a jury and argues that you should be executed by lethal injection. There are very few things more terrifying than that. And this is the system that we entrust to provide justice, fairness, and equality. So many of us, including myself for a long time, I believed we were all equal in the eyes of the law, that laws, institutions, and authorities would come to the defense of those who have been wronged in the name of justice. But that's not how that works. That's not how any of that works. For a long time, the public mocked defense lawyers, called them soulless, heartless, morally corrupt. But in the end, it was often the defense lawyers who stood up for the innocent. Some worked for free. Some refused to abandon clients who couldn't pay. And the good ones, the ones who knew their client was innocent, they fought out of nothing but principle, out of morality. And more often than not, they were the only ones truly standing on the side of justice. And I'm not saying that every defense lawyer stands on the side of justice. I'm talking about those who refuse to abandon their clients, the ones who would fight for clients that they knew were completely innocent. The majority of times, those turned out to be on the side of the defense. There are a few instances where prosecutors have admitted to being wrong and have fought for those people that they helped put away. In our society, that takes a lot of courage and is not given the recognition it deserves. That study was only the first. There have been many more studies since then, and they all show that prosecutorial misconduct is still very much an issue. Of the 381 defendants in that first study who were wrongfully convicted, 67 had been sentenced to death. 67 cases in which prosecutors knew that the person might be innocent and then went on to argue that the state should have those men killed. And afterwards, those prosecutors went home to brag about another victory in court. They closed their eyes and had a peaceful night's sleep and even smiled for the cameras. All the while, knowing that they might have sent an innocent man to death. Some prosecutors kept trophies in their offices. Trophies in the shape of little electric chairs, hangman's nooses. They taunt suspects with jokes and inappropriate comments about gas chambers and mimicking the sounds of an electric chair.
Connick's lead prosecutor was Jim Williams. Jim took great pride in his numerous death penalty convictions. He even kept a miniature electric chair on his desk.
Jim was regarded as one of the most aggressive prosecutors in the district attorney's office. He described sliding up behind defendants in the courtroom and buzzing in their ears to mimic the buzz of electricity.
This is the culture we're talking about.
In the photo of Jim Williams with the electric chair, of the 5 faces visible, all of them were released from death row.
That's why we need to be particularly wary of those with reputations like never lost the case.
Toughest prosecutor in Texas.
Have you ever lost a capital case?
A death penalty case?
Yeah.
No.
That's nothing to be impressed about, because all that says about someone is that they're afraid to take on tough cases, that their reputation means more to them than the truth. Like a boxer who only fights weak opponents, it's actually common practice to gain a reputation of being undefeated by fighting lower-level opponents like Ken. How about choosing a real man as a character next time? Like Chun-Li or Blanca. F you, Ken. Strongest woman in the world, Chun-Li will kick your ass. Stupid Ken. What a loser. And I'm not just saying that because I got my ass kicked by some 10-year-old kid who played with Ken in the early 1990s. He must have been cheating. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah. Like that surgeon in House who refused to do a risky brain surgery because he didn't want to lose his reputation of 100% success rate. So instead, he lived his whole life in fear of taking risks and only went for the easy jobs. Since then, there have been over 2,400 cases found in America. Currently, the United States have the highest number of wrongful convictions, but that's just because they're looking for them. In many countries, once you get locked up, there's no hope for you. In Japan, for instance, they have a 98% conviction rate, but what they won't tell you on official channels is that the police are notorious for beating confessions out of suspects. In India has become increasingly hostile to Muslims and other minorities, with many instances of police officers refusing to investigate crimes against Muslims. And over 30% of prisoners in India are Muslims, even though Muslims are only 14% of the population. El Salvador has removed constitutional rights in order to battle gang violence, leading to sweeping mass arrests and holding people indefinitely without a trial. And many countries still have a reputation for human rights violations, such as torture, planting evidence, framing innocent civilians, and cover-ups, and even disappearing people. That's disappearing as a verb, even in modern times. So wrongful convictions are massively underreported worldwide. So America having the highest number of wrongful convictions should not be seen as America being the absolute worst. Other countries, even developed countries, have huge incentive not to investigate cases of wrongful convictions. In 1932, Yale University law professor Edwin M. Borchardt wrote the book Convicting the Innocent, 65 Actual Errors of Criminal Justice. He knew his readers would struggle to believe his case studies, given the public's blind faith in the court system at the time. One prosecutor in Worcester County, Massachusetts, had even told reporters, "Innocent men are never convicted. Don't worry about it. It never happens in the world. It is a physical impossibility." Borchard's case studies included 8 instances of defendants who were convicted of murder when the supposed victims later turned up alive. Borchard was, if anything, very charitable towards prosecutors and the police. Back then, stirring controversy or making enemies with the wrong group could get your work buried, basically get you canceled before cancel culture. So he argued that prosecutors were obliged to take the evidence as presented, and he often blamed wrongful convictions on the, this is a quote, uncontrollable perjury of vengeful witnesses. When shaky evidence was introduced, he suggested the prosecutors were themselves misled. And when evidence was withheld, he pointed to the broader culture, the immense pressure placed on police and prosecutors by the public demanding quick results. Borchard did, however, point out the self-interest that came with the culture. He wrote, "It is common knowledge that prosecuting technique in the United States is to regard a conviction as a personal victory calculated to enhance the prestige of the prosecutor." And true to form, here we are nearly a century later and nothing has changed. Prosecutors don't see us as human beings. We're just pawns on a chessboard, disposable items in their pursuit to make a name for themselves and gain prestige.
Kent Roach is a professor at the University of Toronto's Faculty of Law. His new book catalogues the myriad ways that Canada's justice system makes such cases more common than you might think, and what Canada must do to safeguard justice. 187,000 cases before courts in this country every year. How many of them do they get wrong?
At the registry, we launched with 83 cases of wrongful convictions. But it's only the tip of the iceberg because these only measure remedied wrongful convictions.
After being convicted in a triple murder that prosecutors now say he did not commit, Kevin Strickland is finally free. One of the longest wrongful conviction cases in U.S. history. When he entered prison, he could walk. He now relies on a wheelchair.
I was actually watching a soap opera, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
So that's how you learned?
That's how I learned.
Strickland was convicted by an all-white jury in 1979, despite having an alibi and no physical evidence linking him to the crimes. Missouri law prevented her from being able to release him or bring his case before a judge.
This is wrong, and everyone that works in this system must find a way to do the right thing now. The right thing is getting Mr. Strickland out.
Even when the prosecutor is on your side, it took months and months for Mr. Strickland to come home.
Strickland will not receive any compensation from Missouri.
Under Missouri law, those who have been exonerated do not get compensation.
I mean, if they were to tell me to roll out now, they'd take this chair. I had to crawl out the front door. I have nothing.
It's going to be the first thing you do if and when you get out.
You hear a 62-year-old man say this, but I'm a mama's boy, and I got to go see mama.
But Strickland never got that wish. Procedural hurdles caused his case to be delayed. His mother passed away on August 21st.